Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is this on? Yeah, it's on. Okay. A roll call. Commissioner Brewer? Here. Commissioner Clement? Here. Commissioner Etchigon? Here. Commissioner Day?
Here.
I am here, and let the record show that Commissioner Franklin is not here, at least not yet. Okay, item number 3, public comment. This time is reserved for members of the audience to comment on subject matters that are not on the agenda but are within the jurisdiction of the Lemoore Planning Commission. Speakers are asked to limit their comments to 3 minutes per person. Commission is prohibited by law from taking any action on matters that are not on the agenda. Any handouts for the commission staff shall be provided to the commission secretary for distribution to the commission and appropriate staff. Do we have anyone who'd like to comment from the public? Hearing none. Item number 4, call for minutes. The approval of the minutes from the regular meeting September 13th. You've had a chance to review the minutes.
Mr. Chair, if there are no other comments by my fellow commissioners, I move to approve the minutes for our September 13, 2020 meeting.
Okay, a motion by Commissioner Clement. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
That was a tie. Okay, Mr. Etchigon, second. Okay, so Commissioner Clement?
Aye.
Commissioner Etchigon? Aye. Commissioner Brewer?
Aye.
Commissioner Day?
Aye.
And I abstain. Okay. Item number 5, public hearing. This is for major site plan review 21-05, a request by Hold My Beer LLC for approval for the construction of 2 industrial buildings. The first phase proposes approximately 20,000 square foot building dedicated to be a bottling plant, office, and storage space to develop, bottle, store, and distribute a cannabis-infused beverage. The second phase proposes approximately 23,300 square feet for 6 tenant-occupied suites, each with a storefront and adjoining storage areas. The 3.03 acre site zoned for light industrial use is located at 1156 Commerce Way on the northeast corner of Commerce Avenue and Enterprise Drive. APN number 024-051-017. Mr. Brandt.
Thank you, Chair. Steve Brandt, City Planner. You pretty much gave half my report there with announcing it. Yeah, this is a site plan review for a new industrial buildings at the corner of Commerce Way and Enterprise Drive. There would be 2 buildings, probably most likely built in 2 phases. The first phase would be the southern building, and it would house a bottling plant for cannabis-infused beverage. The cannabis use, as you know, requires a special approval from the City Council. They have already given that approval. So, so this site plan review would then go to building permit, and then you could start construction. So we've reviewed, all the departments have reviewed the site plan. We've made some comments. We actually went through 2 rounds of the site plan. The first one we asked for a resubmittal, which he's made, and that's the one that you see tonight. And we have a few more comments which are in your packet. He's already working on those changes, so there's no issues there or anything. So trying to think there was any issues. Not really. The only one that you don't see on the site plan is there's, I think, as you know, there's a requirement for some special entryway on industrial projects, and so he's going to add that in on the southerly drive approach at Commerce Way and make that look like more of a main entryway with some special landscaping and things like that. So we are recommending approval with the conditions in the draft resolution, which are standard conditions, talk about meeting the site plan comments and moving forward as proposed. That's all I have.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Brandt before we open the public hearing? No? Okay. We will open the public hearing at 7:08. Does anyone like to address the commission?
I don't really have anything to say. I just stopped by to see. My name is Daniel Kinney, and I am the owner of Hold My Beer LLC. I'm also a 50% owner in Ray's Lemonade, so that's where we come from. Ray's Lemonade is the beverage, the name of the beverage that's going to be produced in the facility. And so I came down just because I was in town, and so I wanted to stop by and say hi to y'all. Do you guys have any questions for anything that we're doing out there, whether it relates to this specific thing or other things? I'm happy to answer them. That's why I'm here.
Any questions, commissioners?
Oh, one. So I know that the main product that you're going to be producing is cannabis-infused beverages, right?
That's correct.
What percentage? I know nothing about cannabis-infused drinks, so I'm just curious, what percent is the level going to be?
Yeah, so it'll all be within the state regulates that, right? So you're allowed certain amounts of certain number of doses per bottle or things like that, but everything usually needs to be dosed. So the way we do it up there, and now we'll comply with whatever California sets out for us. So that's all highly regulated stuff. But up in Washington, that's why I can tell you what we currently producing up in the state of Washington. And so 10 milligrams of THC is what they consider a dose. And so for a big guy like me, that's probably twice of what I actually want. I want like 5. But then you can sometimes have somebody who weighs 90 pounds and they'll drink 200 milligrams and they'll be just absolutely just like having a great little time and they're doing great. So it's really interesting how that dosage works. And so our thing, what we always tell people, because this is an edible, is everything is dosed. So everything has on it labels that says, a dose is 10 milligrams. This is what it takes to have a dose. Either it'll have a measuring cup on it or it'll have a cap. The cap sometimes measures the dose. So the people that are unaware can read it and they go, okay, this is what I want to do, and try it and see where they're at. But each person is different. And so that's what's interesting about THC. It just affects people differently. So we kind of have a little campaign going. It's like know your dose, because we don't want people to have more than they should or more than they want to. So that's the straight answer on it. So yeah. So ours would probably be, we have milligram dosage to answer. We go from 10 milligrams to 100 milligrams in a bottle. That's how we do it up there. And so basically that would be the 10 milligram dose or one dose. We'd have either 10 doses or one dose, and it goes 10 to 100 milligrams, if that makes any sense. One of the things that is interesting about that, because I do 10 milligrams all day long. I want to go out and go fishing. I take a 10 milligram drink, and that's how I'd like to do it. What sells is 100 milligram doses. That's what the public wants. The public wants 100 milligram doses. And so even more so, we make 12-ounce bottles, and that's what we started with, and that's still we make them. We have like 17 different flavors: huckleberry and raspberry and orange, and they're very much like a Mike's Hard Lemonade in a glass bottle and like that. But people want the little tiny airplane style bottles, the little miniature ones, and those have 100 milligrams in them also. So it's like a concentrate in my mind, but that's the stuff that sells. And usually what they're doing is they're mixing it in some other drink, so they've got even in their water or whatever, then that's what they're doing. So it's an interesting product.
So state regulations here allow 100 milligrams?
Yes, and in fact, they might actually allow a little more, but we probably won't make more than that. So, but if they were to ever change those or want less, if they were to say, here's what you've got to do, then that's what we do. Whatever the rules say.
Any of the products, so there's obviously the THC infused product, are any of the other components of cannabis like CBD or CBG or CBN, are any of those like added into the
See,
drinks?
you do know some stuff about cannabis.
I know about cannabis, but not the drinks.
The CBD will also be in there. So we have 10 to 1 and a 1 to 1. So, but sometimes we'll match the CBD to the THC, and sometimes we'll actually go heavier on the CBD. And that's for people that don't want to have the high effect. They want the medicinal effect of it. And so, like a lot of times, it'll help with pain and things like that. So the 10 to 1, where we had 100 milligrams of CBD with 10 milligrams of THC, people really liked that combination for like if they were if they had pain and things like that. That way, they wouldn't be on opioids and other things that get sold from the doctor, so they would use it that way. And so that has a unique market, but we definitely sold more. It just as far as what the public wants the lower price for the most amount of THC. That's the stuff that sells the most, and that's how it goes. So that's the way the market pushes it.
So is the higher CBD content ones more expensive than the other?
Yes, it is. It is. So up in Washington now, we haven't set our prices down here yet because we're not making anything yet. But in Washington, we'll sell wholesale a bottle, like a 12-ounce bottle. If it's got 100 milligrams of just THC in it, we'll sell that for $7. If it's got CBD and THC, we'll sell that for $9. And so it goes up in price because that extra oil costs a little bit. But really, it's all told, the biggest, the cannabis oil that's in there is a very minor component. But you take a bunch of little minor components and they all start to add up. But yeah.
Now, do you have to? You said that the bottling itself is the most expensive part. What, because of the components that are in the beverage, like, do you have to? I'm guessing you can't just use like the cheapo water bottles for that. Like, you have to have like a higher grade plastic or glass.
We probably could. I've actually got one in my bag. You want to see one of the little minis? I've got one that I just happen to have. I thought there might be some curiosity about one. So not that. This is from Washington, but here's some little tiny airplane bottles, and so these are the only plastic ones we make. They're tiny. They have a little shrink wrap label that's put on them. They say Ray's Lemonade on them, and then we have the 12-ounce bottles too, and so they're durable and they're resealable. So you close them. They're also you want them childproof, so they have a plastic wrap on them that has to be torn off. They have warning labels and a bunch of other things on them, but you probably could use a water bottle. I don't know that it wouldn't look very quality. You kind of want to have for us, we want to have a good looking brand and all that stuff. So we want our Ray's Lemonade to look like our Ray's Lemonade that started up there, and have it kind of be an actual brand that's recognizable, and then maintain that. So we don't want to vary from what we've tried and works and we know that the people want. So that's what we try to provide them.
Any other questions? Comments? Hearing none, then we will
All right.
thank you for coming.
Yeah. Thank you guys for
Interesting.
listening.
It's 7:17. Okay. We have a motion for the resolution.
And excuse me, Mr. Chair, for the commission, a non-substantive note on the resolution in the final whereas clause. It states that the public hearing is being held pursuant to a regular meeting. That should be special meeting. We'll have staff make that correction.
Okay. Yes.
Other than that, nothing substantive regarding the resolution before you.
Okay. Accept a motion. If someone would like to make a motion on this resolution.
Well, I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 2021-18 to approve major site plan number 2021-05 in accordance with the findings and the conditions in the resolution.
we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Echegon, second by Commissioner Day. Any further discussion? Call for the question. Commissioner Echegon,
Aye.
Commissioner Day,
Aye.
Commissioner Clement,
Aye.
Commissioner Brewer,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Item number 6, discussion, new planning and housing laws. Mr. Brandt, you're up again.
Thank you. Every year, lately, it seems like the state legislature likes to take away a little bit more local control. That's a commentary on my part. I don't always bring these before you, but this year, these new laws have kind of been in the newspaper, or at least they've been in some of the larger newspapers. Even the New York Times talked about some of these. So I wanted to just bring this before you in case you did see any articles, because there's some of them are not interpreting these laws correctly. So if Chris, you go to the next slide, because I don't think, yeah, this wasn't in your packet. So there's 5 of them that I've noticed that we need to deal with. The biggest new one's probably SB 9. So SB 8 is a modification to SB 330, which is a 2-year-old law. And that one is one that says it's forcing cities to be more objective in the types of standards that they put out for residential projects. So you can't just deny a project because you don't like how it looks or something like that. So we've got some pretty good objective standards. I think there's a few that need to be maybe tightened up a little bit, but it's basically saying if a project is consistent with the general plan, you pretty much have to approve it. Some cities have not been doing that, and so the state steps in and makes a law. SB 9 is the one that's been getting a lot of press. Some have said it's the end of single-family zoning in California. That's not really what it does, but what it does do is it says that under very specific circumstances, someone can have a second house on a single-family lot. And when you add the fact that they can also get accessory dwelling units, if they have the right shaped lot and enough space, you can see a scenario where they could have 4 housing units on a single family lot. Now, a typical 6,000 square foot single family lot's not going to be big enough to do that. But if there's a very large lot in a single family zone, which for us is RLD, there's a possibility that could happen, and it's all ministerial, meaning the staff has to approve it at the staff level. So, like I said, there's a lot of caveats in the law, and what I'm looking at, I've only read through it once, and a lot of people are very confused about it. We're probably gonna have to come up with some type of staff checklist where if it meets all these conditions, then we'll approve it. So.
Would this be like a mother-in-law's unit in the backyard, that type of thing?
No, this is 2 primary homes plus 2 mother-in-law units that you can have. It also says you can split a lot to less than the minimum lot size if you build a home on the second one. So then there's caveats to that too. So it changes a few things, and we're still trying to figure out how we're going to address that in the zoning ordinance.
Steve, question, what size lot would accommodate 2 houses?
Well, if you think about a 1,500 square foot single family home with a garage probably takes up 2,000 square feet, and you want 2 of those, and you've got some backyard space, and then it's how it's shaped. It's probably only going to be the larger lots that do this at first, if they do it at all. But we'll see, because the law talks about when you can't demolish the existing home. So I think they're assuming that in some of the more urbanized areas like San Jose or something like that, that people might actually tear down a home so they could build 2 homes. I don't know if that's going to happen. The market's different up there.
Sounds like we could end up with a lot of flag lots.
Yes, that's possibility too. So again, we're still trying to figure out
Okay.
how to interpret this. And when I say we, I mean the entire planning profession in California. So I'm still waiting to see stuff from my APA about, you know, how we're gonna do this. And, you know, I'm very interested in it because I want to figure out how is this going to be able to work in the Central Valley, because it was obviously written with urban areas in mind, not with Central Valley area in mind.
And if I may add on to that, there are specific standards in the law about accommodating houses of at least 800 square feet. You could go larger if the city in its adopted ordinance chose to go smaller. I believe that is permitted, but then that's the city's discretion to go to that lower level. Some of the other particulars in the law, it describes certain types of housing that cannot be demolished in order to accommodate this type of construction. Anything that is deed restricted or has a covenant to limit it to an affordable rent level. And curiously, any house that has been rented by a tenant in the last 3 years. So if that actually means what it says, then it should prohibit the possibility of someone who has a rental unit, a single rental unit on a parcel from knocking over that house and building 2 or more units because of that particular restriction. In addition, this applies, and those conditions apply to the lot split as well. So both the construction of multiple units as well as the lot split. Both of those provisions also require the owner to sign an affidavit that says they're going to live as their primary residence in one of the units that is constructed for a period of at least 3 years. So in theory, that should keep this type of development in, being done by folks that actually live on the property as opposed to investors that might not live in the area. Again, we'll see how this all plays out, but these are some of the provisions in the law. I'll also point out Mr. Brandt's comments about being able to construct 2 units and then on top of that an ADU and a JADU. Using just the construction aspect, that does appear to be how one scenario might play out. In looking at the law, there is specific language that says if you utilize both of the features, the lot split as well as the construction, the city doesn't have to approve an ADU. So what that should do is prohibit or prevent the situation where where someone comes in, splits the lot, tries to build 2 units on each lot, and tries to build an ADU and a JADU on each lot. At this point, having reviewed the law, but not really dug in deeply, and I think it's fair to say that city attorneys are going through the same sort of examination that city planners are as to how this law is going to play out. If a city decided that you wanted to utilize, allow ADUs on a property that has already been split and constructed with 2 units, it appears that would be the city's prerogative. But again, we'll have to see how that plays out. And then finally, there's a provision in the law that says any construction that occurs under this can be counted towards the city's RENA numbers. So that's part of the housing element and requirements for the city to accommodate housing at various levels. So construction that is done pursuant to this law can count towards those cities' numbers that is tracked on an annual basis.
So it was the part that about not being able to build 8 units that I've seen a number of large newspapers get wrong. So that was that was one of the reasons why I thought, in case you guys read LA Times or something like that, I want to make sure that you know that we're up on this. So yeah, that one's very interesting. SB 10, it gives, this one's not a mandate, but it gives the city council permission to upzone a single parcel for up to 10 units per acre. It's kind of interesting one. It's interesting from a planning perspective because to me, it sounds like spot zoning, which has always been, not allowed, but maybe now it is in this case. So we'll see if that one, and that may be a case where Lemoore says, yeah, we're not interested in doing that. So then we just don't do it. And then these next two are a little more specific. The AB 1174 requires cities to ministerially approve infill multifamily projects. And for their definition, infill means if 3/4 of the lot is already developed, like the perimeter around it, then it's considered infill. We do, there's a lot of multifamily projects, smaller multifamily projects that we already do under minor site plan review. I think there's one that we did recently that was 7 units. So we already kind of do this. So we'll see if we need to change anything for that. And then the last one's really specific. But it's interesting in that it allows someone to sell their accessory dwelling unit to the family that's living there if the accessory dwelling unit was built by a nonprofit like Habitat for Humanity or Self-Help or somebody like that. So that one's interesting because it's the first time that I've seen where you can actually sell the home but not sell the land underneath it. So it's almost like working, it's similar to a mobile home park, so I don't see this one happening unless all of a sudden Self-Help shows up and wants to start doing this in Lemoore. We'll have to deal with it. So Christy, you want to go to the next slide? What my takeaway, big picture takeaway, is we're going to need to have more emphasis on standards ahead of time and less project review when something comes to us. We'll have to already know what we're going to support. But the positive is that the clear standards are going to lead to faster processing, less staff time. And one question that's come up is we have the PUD process, which has a lot of discretion in it. And it's like, so do we need to really get rid of that because it has a lot of discretion in it, or maybe not get rid of it or modify it. We'll see. So the last slide is just thinking about this, the direction because I'm going to talk to the council about this tomorrow, is how do you want to respond to these laws as a city? So do you want to grudging acceptance, which is like, oh, this is terrible. Well, we're only going to do what the state's going to require us to do. Are you going to be customer oriented, which is like, you know what, we're going to make the best of this. If property owners want to do this, we're going to help them out. We're going to help them do it. Or do you want to be full speed ahead and say, I'm going to go even more than what they did because we really think we need, more housing and things like that. My guess working here is you're probably in the middle, but we'll have that discussion.
Steve, I have a question. There's some pieces of property here in the city where you mentioned earlier about if there are 3 sides to a block.
Yeah.
What happens if there are 4 sides and there is empty property within that city block? Because there are in this city. I've seen them. So,
if it's zoned for multifamily housing, or if the zoning ordinance allows multifamily housing, we have to allow it to get built.
okay. One particular parcel I'm thinking of, it's all residences. But there are some ingress egress where they could probably get to that open space within that city block. So how would that work?
Because of access issues? Is that your question?
Yeah, well, if there was access, I mean, can there be residences built in that open property.
If it's zoned for residential
zoned correctly,
use,
okay.
yeah.
Well, it's an older property, so I'm not quite sure what it's zoned, but just curious how
You
that
have to
would
think
work.
for a minute, because we're not like a lot of the larger cities in more urbanized areas. I mean, they put developers through a lot. And so, I mean, one of these laws said, there can only be 5 public hearings before you make a decision. It's like, when have we ever had 5 public hearings on a project here? So, but apparently that has been happening in some places. So we're part of California. We get to deal with solutions to problems that we didn't cause.
Could multifamily housing go into that open space within that city block?
If our zoning allows it, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So to be continued.
To be continued. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Director's report.
Good evening, Commissioners. Not a whole lot to update tonight, other than Lacey Ranch project. That's going forward, and a couple updates on staffing since last time we were here. So I had told you at the last meeting that Christy Bailey was moving on to our Public Works Department as a management analyst. So I'm happy to report that she's doing a lateral transfer back to planning as the management analyst. And we went out and hired somebody for Public Works. We restructured. There will not be a director seated in the foreseeable future. So we'll be utilizing our city planner, Steve Brandt, and I'll be handling the administrative duties of the role of the director. And then Christy's been given more responsibilities in her new role. So she's not going anywhere. She'll be here for hopefully till she decides to retire with the city. So I'd like to thank Christy and for all she's done in this interim, and her and Steve have been doing a good job keeping the wheels going. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Nathan, if I may,
Yes, sir.
I've been around a little while in this commission. I'd like to personally thank not only Steve, but also Christy. I mean, she has been spot on with getting things to us on time, and her professional conduct is out the window. Thanks.
I agree with you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, item number 8, commission reports or requests. Okay, and now we do have a meeting next Monday, is that correct? This is future meeting, October 11th.
This time has not been officially canceled.
Okay,
We'll likely send out a cancellation.
okay. Anything else, commissioners? Nope. Well, we will adjourn this meeting at 7:35.